everyone, especially to you, Coach Judith. I am the little teacher of study hub number 8. So I am Rosalia Bejero, and my role in this video presentation is to give the overall main topic 2 about the learner-centered psychological principle. So I also discuss the one factor, which is the cognitive and the metacognitive, and their 6 principles. And my other members has their own topic, which is Miss Bernice Marie de los Santos will discuss to you about the motivational and effective factors and the 3 principles. And Miss Verbalin Joe will discuss to you about the developmental and social factors and the 2 principles. And Miss Rosalind Pandalan will discuss to you about the individual different factors and the 3 principles. And Ms. Raima Aniani will discuss to you about the legal and policy frameworks and learner-centered teaching. What is LCP? LCP stands for Learner-Centered Psychological Principles. So Learner-Centered Psychological Principles Introduction, the Task Force on Psychological in Education appointed by American Psychological Association or APA in early 1990s to conduct studies that could further enhance the current understanding of education on the nature of learning about the teaching learning process. So, way back on 1990s, the American Psychological Association or APA created a task force on psychology in education. The task force was formed to explain further events in teaching and learning process. They wanted to know more about the learners. They wanted to know more about the teaching and the learning process. They wanted to know more the nature of learners and how learners learn and how teachers can give better learning experiences to our learners. So that is the major reason was the task force was created way back in 1990s. American Psychological Association is the largest scientific and professional organization of psychologists in the United States with over 118,000 members, including scientists, educators, clinicians, consultants, and students. The learner-centered psychological principles, the 14 principles are divided into those referring to cognitive and metacognitive, motivational and effective, developmental and socials, and individual different factors influence learners and learning. Finally, the principles are intended to apply to all learners from children to teachers, to administrators, to parents, and to community members involved in our educational system. So, cognitive and metacognitive. The first principles, which is the nature of the learning process. There are different types of learning processes. For example, habit formation in motor learning and learning that involves generation of knowledge or cognitive skills and learning strategies. Learning in school emphasizes the use of intentional processes that students can use to construct meaning from information, experience, and their own thoughts and beliefs. Successful learners are active, goal-directed, and self-regulating and learning initiative. So, the second principles, which is the goals of the learning process. The strategic nature of the learning requires students to be goal-directed, to construct useful representation of knowledge, and to acquire the thinking and learning strategies necessary for continued learning success across the lifespan. Students must generate and pursue personally relevant goals. The third one, which is the constructions of knowledge. Knowledge widens defense as students continue to build links between new information and experience and their existing knowledge base. The nature of this link can take a variety of forms, such as adding to modifying or reorganizing existing knowledge or skills. How these links are made or developed may vary in different subject areas and among students with varying talents, interests, and abilities. So the fourth principles, which is the strategic thinking. Successful learners use strategic thinking in their approach to learning, reasoning, problem solving, and concept learning. They understand and can use a variety of strategies to help them reach learning and performance goals and to apply their knowledge in novel situations. They also continue to expand their repertoire of strategies by reflecting on the method they use to see which work well for them, by receiving guided instruction and feedback, and by observing or interacting with appropriate models. The fifth principles, which is the thinking about thinking. Successful learner can reflect on how they think and learn, set reasonable learning or performance goals, select potentially appropriate learning strategies or methods, and monitor their progress towards these goals. In addition, successful learners know how to do if a problem occurs or if they are not making sufficient or timely progress toward a goal. So the six principles, which is the context of learning, technologies and instructional practice must be appropriate for learners' level of prior knowledge, cognitive abilities, and their learning and thinking strategy. So that's all the topic that assigned to me. Thank you for watching. I hope you learned something.
Good day to each and everyone. So I am Denise Maria Kita Santos from Study Hub number 8. So before I discuss to you my assigned topic, let's have a short recap about Ms. Abajero's discussion. So the learner-centered psychological principles have 14 principles. It is categorized into 4. First is cognitive and metacognitive. Second, motivational and affective. Third, developmental and social. And lastly, individual difference factors. These 14 principles focusing on psychological factors that are primarily internal to and under the control of the learner rather than conditioned habits or sociological factors, intended to deal holistically with learners in the context of real-world learning situation. So Ms. Abejero have already discussed about cognitive and metacognitive factors. So first, let's segregate the cognitive and metacognitive factors. The cognitive factors is learning involve various cognitive components like attention, perception, executive function, and reasoning. It also involves in various strategies that one uses to learn something. On the other hand, metacognitive factors involve the monitoring and evaluating of cognitive factors. Under cognitive and metacognitive factors, we have 6 principles. The first principle is nature of learning process, the goal of learning process. 3 is construction of knowledge. 4th is strategic thinking. 5th is thinking about thinking. And lastly is context of thinking. Under motivational and affective factors, we have 3 principles. First is motivational and emotional influence on learning. Second, intrinsic motivation to learn. Lastly is effective of motivation on efforts. Under developmental influence on learning, we have 2 principles. First is developmental influence on learning, and second is social influence on learning. Under individual difference factors, we have 3 principles. First is individual difference in learning. Third is learning and discussion. Lastly, the 14th principle is standard and assessments. After a very short recap, let's move on to my assigned topic, which is motivational and affective factors, which include 7th, 8th, and 9th principles, which are motivational and emotional influence on learning, intrinsic motivation to learn, and effective of motivation on efforts. So let's first discuss the motivational and emotional influence on learning. So motivational and emotional influence on learning. It is what, how much learning is influenced by the learner's motivation. Motivation to learn in turn is influenced by individuals' emotional states, beliefs, interests, and habits of thinkings. For example, on motivational influence on learning. A K-pop fan learning to read and speak the native language of her idol. So in this part, whereas her motivation is to learn the native language of her idol, which is Korean. She have interest in learning such language so that he can or she can communicate with her idol properly. The second example is he's motivated to graduate to be able to make his parents proud. It's a motivational influence. His motivational influence here is his parent. He want to make his parent proud, so he continue learning and be able to graduate. So under the emotional influence on learning, we have a confident child who is secure in the class may be able to listen, well, learn, and take risks. So in this example, a confident child in your classroom is feeling secure that he or she is able to learn and to explore more, to listen to your teacher well, and taking risk. Fun example under emotional influence on learning is that most people is making failure in life as inspiration to become successful. Proceed to the 8 principles under motivational and affective factors. So, the 8 principles is intrinsic motivation to learn. The learner's creatively higher order thinking and natural curiosity all contribute to motivational to learn. Intrinsic motivation is stimulated tasks, optimal mobility, and difficulty relevant personal interest and providing for personal choice and control. Intrinsic motivation refers to an individual's personal interest, satisfaction, and enjoyment. Examples of intrinsic motivation to learn is a student learning to study different language of his or her interest. So, second is a child captivated by the intricate details of the butterfly's wings, eagerly devour books on entomology. Second is the musician fueled by the deep passion for music, tirelessly find joy in the process of mastering her instruments. So in this part, the intrinsic motivation to learn, it is part where you have passion in learning it. Like for example, the musician, he had passion in learning different language, in terms of many difficulties in learning different instruments, and also for the language, a student is learning different language because he loves to and he has interest in learning different language. So let's proceed to the last one is effective for motivation on effort. Acquisitions of complex knowledge and skills requiring excellent learning efforts and guide practices without learns motivation to learn. The willingness to exert this effort is unlike without coercions. So here are the examples of effective and motivation on efforts. For example, if a student diligently work on a difficult algebra problem again and again, this would indicate a higher level of motivation towards math activities. So, in this example, it is how much effort you have given so that any problem can solve it. For example, in this student that diligently work on different algebra so that he can master any math problems, or he can encounter, or he can solve any problems ahead. So, second is the fan are making efforts in learning his idol native language. She uses learning apps and study at her free time. So in this part, Ifan is have effort, is giving much effort to learn a native language so that he can, or she can communicate with her idol properly. and she can be noticed by her idol. So thank you for listening for my discussion, which is about motivational and affective factors. Thank you very much for listening. Once again, I am Venice Marie Kidra Santos from Study Hub number 8.
Hi everyone, my name is Farbalin S. Jo from Bitiled HE1E. And I'm from the Study Hub number 8. So, my topic is the development and social factors from the topic 2, learner-centered psychological principles. Developmental influence on learning. As individuals develop, there are different opportunities and constraints for learning. Learning is most effective when differential development within and across physical, intellectual, emotional, and social domains is taken into account. Means that the development of an individual influences how they learn. This could be the ways in which they are raised, the environment, or genetics. When we teach, we need to take into consideration a wide range of factors. As a child develops, he will experience different prospects as well as limitations in learning. Next is social influence on learning. Learning is influenced by social interaction, interpersonal relation, and communication with others. Means learning influences by social interaction, interpersonal relation, and communication with others. Social influences is the changes in behavior that one person causes in another, intentionally or unintentionally, as a result of the way the changed person perceive themselves in relationships to the influencer, other people, and society in general. In conclusion, both developmental and social influences play vital roles in shaping how individuals learn. Development factors such as upbringing, environmental condition, and genetic predisposition determine the unique strengths and challenges each learner faces, while social influences stemming from interaction, relationship, and communication with others impact behavior and self-perception, further affecting learning outcomes. Recognizing and integrating these diverse influences into educational approaches allows educators and parents to create more effective and personalized learning experience. Ultimately, fostering growth and success in all learners, understand this interplay is essential for nurturing well-rounded individuals who who can thrive in both academic and social contexts.
Good day, everyone, especially to you, Coach Jude. I'm Rosalind Pandalan from Vital HE1A. So let me discuss to you my assigned topic, which is individual differences. What is individual differences? Individual differences refers to the enduring psychological characteristic that distinguishes a person and others, such as intelligence, personality, traits, and values. In individual differences, there are three principles were included. Number one is individual differences in learning. Number two, learning and diversity. And lastly, standard and assessment. Individual differences in learning. Learners have different strategies, approaches, and capabilities for learning that are function and experience and heredity. Learners groups have acquired their own preferences for how they like to learn as they engage in social acculturation. So, in learning individual differences, all learners have their own strategies or approaches on how they like to learn. Some of them will learn by viewing of an image, video, and listening. As the learner, as the learner engage in the social acculturation or social groups, they will discover what is an appropriate strategies that will suitable for them. Learners also learn from their experiences. So educators should help students to identify and progress their learning style. Let's move on to the learning and diversity. Learning is the most effective when differences in learners' linguistic, lingua, cultural, and social background are taken into account. In learning and diversity, every individual came from the different environment. Meron silang tradisyon, language na ginagamit, and beliefs. Kapag ang kanilang pagkakaiba ay nirespeto, they will become motivated in their learning or studies. So, why educators should understand the diversity of the learners? It is important to understand these attributes in order to effectively teach the students. As a future educator, we should know about this. So let's proceed to the number three. Number three is standards and assessment. Setting appropriate, high and challenging standards and assessing the learners as well as the learning process, including diagnostic process and outcome. As assessments are integral parts of the learning process. Standards provide educator with blueprint for what students should know and be able to do in each grade level or subject matter. Ensure that all students are held to the same high expectation and the curriculum is consistent across schools. In assessment allows to determine the extent to which students have to master the standards. Assessment provides valuable feedback on both students and teachers' performance, highlighting areas of strengths or need improvement. Teacher adjusts their teaching strategies based on the assessment result to ensure that all students are making progress toward meeting the standards. So that's all my report. Thank you for listening.